This is Mommying While Muslim, recorded live and unedited. Watch as Zeba and Uzma record their podcast, see their reactions, and find out for yourself what all the buzz is about.
Assalamu alaikum. This is Zeba Hassan with Momming While Muslim. And as you can see today, I am solo, at least solo for right now. Many of you know and have reached out to us about my beautiful and lovely co-host, Uzma Joffrey, who is dealing with a little bit of a medical emergency with her daughter. And as we know, Allah is the best of planners, and there's not much that we can do when he has something written for us. Her daughter, Rania, she has given me permission, by the way, to talk about this openly. Her daughter, Rania, was taken by ambulance to the hospital on Sunday. She suffers from an autoimmune version of encephalitis, which essentially is your own antibodies attacking your brain. She was in remission. She had this when she was younger and was hospitalized, and she was in remission. But it looks like the encephalitis is back and they're going to be starting treatment. She, Uzma, like, you know, our whole month of May is dedicated to power moms. And if anybody's a power mom, it is my co-host Uzma, to be honest with you, because she's like in the ambulance trying to figure out about her birthday party and Eid and worrying about me being solo. I know I say a lot of crazy things, Uzma, but I promise you I will do you proud. But the one thing that I wanted to do is to kindly request, especially during these last 10 days of Ramadan, if you can take a moment and please remember Rania and Uzma and their family in your prayers. Obviously, as moms, we know when our kids are sick, there's not much feeling of control that you have, right? So the beauty is when you hear and your community is providing that prayer for you, we would definitely appreciate it. So I was lucky enough to rope my good friend and our lifestyle guru from Mommy Well Muslim, Solat Sadie, and she is joining me today and filling in for Uzma as we talk to another powerful mom. This is Solat. Solat, how are you doing? How's your Ramadan? How are you coping with everything?
I am, well, Walaikum Assalam. I'm doing well. I know it's like coming to the end of this holy month. It's been nice, but it's exhausting. I'm looking forward to sleeping in
Yeah.
again.
Yeah, I know. And I definitely appreciate you filling in for Uzma with only 4 hours of sleep, but you look beautiful. And I definitely thank you for
Thank
that.
you.
And we're going to continue because like I said, we like to surround ourselves with power moms. And we're going to talk about another
hmm
power mom right now. She is an amazing guest who essentially is fulfilling the sunnah of aiding orphans. And she literally not only adopted a child overseas, but she made sure that those left behind continue to thrive. And she believes in saving all children and is the founder of Bloom Charity. And I just wanted to bring her on and her point of view. And Amina Shams, thank you so much today for joining us on Mommying While Muslim. How are you? And Assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum Assalam. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So I wanted to start off like I think you, Soleth, was the one who introduced us. She was like, "Oh my God, I know this woman. She's amazing. She has an awesome story." So like the fact that she's here today to kind of chit chat and bring you into our conversation is quite the blessing. But one of the things she told me about, which I really resonated, was the fact that you went to Morocco. I believe you went and adopted your child, and then you decided like you wanted to help all the other orphans that were there. So could you explain a little bit about your momming journey to our audience and how you got here and how Bloom Charity bloomed to fruition?
Yeah, no, I'd love to share that. To be honest, the journey that I had as a mother and then an adoptive mother really, really is rooted in our faith, which is why I love having the opportunity to share that through this forum with other Muslim mothers. Because I truly did start thinking about this as a young girl. When I was growing up, it was something I dreamed about. It's something that I felt was a part of our faith. Hearing the stories of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam growing up, it really affected me, and it made me want to do something meaningful in my life. I grew up in a family that had a lot of faith and they believed in service. And so I always would think about my own purpose in this world and what I had to offer. And as a little girl, I didn't really feel that I had that much to give. You know, you don't really understand your power, but I knew that I had love. I knew that I had my heart, and I knew that I have a love for children, and that my faith commands that I love orphans. And so it was really just something that came very naturally to me since childhood. It was a dream to have a family and grow a family through adoption. And it was something I prioritized even when I was looking for a partner, to make sure that they were on board with this kind of a family. And so, really, after my husband and I got married, we started planning and thinking about how we would make this dream come true. So, you know, we were young, we were students. We had, alhamdulillah, we were able to have biological children. We had two biological children, but all the time we were planning and saving to grow our family through adoption. And really, I had initially imagined that I would adopt from Pakistan because that's my country of heritage, that's my husband's country of heritage. But you know, God has his plan. And as I was going through the process, Pakistan seemed really daunting, and there were certain aspects to it that didn't feel comfortable to me. So I started to look at other options, and someone told me about the opportunity to adopt from Morocco. And it took me about 3 years at that time because I adopted in 2015 and Morocco had been closed for adoption for a period of time. So, you know, it was quite a process, but alhamdulillah, I was part of the first group of families that was able to adopt after adoptions reopened. And I was able to help get the adoptions reopened for Morocco. And, you know, the moment I laid eyes on my son, my whole world changed and I understood love on a different level. And he has given me so much more than I've been able to give him.
That's actually
So,
that's amazing, to be honest with you. It's so beautiful the fact that you thought about this as a young girl and you saw it to fruition. And my question to you is for those people, and I know this is one of those hot topic conversations, right? Where people are like, "Oh, you can't really," even though our prophet, for those of us that don't know already, our prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was actually an orphan. So orphans and really carry a special part in within our faith. But you do have a set of people that don't believe in adoption or don't think that we actually should do it. So what do you say to those people when they bring something like that up?
you know, I'll be honest, I've really blocked those people out of my frame. I think, you know, my husband always says um, you were a mama before your adoptive son, and you became a mama bear after him. So I will say, even when we started to share this dream with people, there were definitely people that didn't agree with this idea, that thought,
Mhm.
you know, well, why don't you just give money? Why don't you try something else? And didn't really understand why I felt so emphatically that I needed to adopt a child. And I started to just block that energy out. I really felt that this was something I needed to do. I felt it in the core of my being. And so I just stuck with it. And, you know, as far as the sunnah goes, the prophet himself has also adopted. And the wisdom in what Islam says about adoption is that it should be an open adoption, that the child should know their identity, they should know their heritage. And that is also the modern day wisdom of adoption. It doesn't contradict what current day psychology tells us about optimal adoptions. It's not the adoptions of the 1980s where you lie to your children and they have a moment of shock. My son knows his heritage. He knows that he's from Morocco. He knows that this is a beautiful way in which he came into this family, and that there are many different families and many different ways that families form. We don't lie to him about that. We actually think it's a source of pride for him. He fulfills the sunnah in a way that he didn't even have a choice in. He's an orphan, and our prophet was an orphan.
So, Amna, I've been following your journey for a couple of years, via, Facebook, for social media. I mean, I've seen your beautiful boy grow up. I mean, I think it's amazing that not only have you taken the fact that you've taken a dream of adopting your own child, but then also helping these other orphans back home, but then taking it to the next level to, work with legislation to make sure that people can still adopt from Morocco. How has that journey been? What kind of support have you been given along the way? And how do you know who to turn to and what the proper rules are
So I
as
will
far
say,
as, getting help from legislation?
yeah. That was an early part of my journey. When I decided that I wanted
Mhm.
to adopt my son from Morocco, at the time, Morocco was still closed for adoptions. So I ended up really forming some deep relationships with the Moroccan consulate here in Washington, D.C., and, just some key decision makers in terms of reopening those adoptions. And I was able to advocate for um, Muslim families. That's a qualification, that Muslim families from the U.S., single women as well, should be able to adopt these children. And one thing we do through the nonprofit I started after adopting my son is we make sure that we give these children an opportunity to maintain a connection to their country of heritage. So we have a part of our nonprofit that's called Bloom Community, and as adoptive families, we stay connected. We give each other advice and love, and we have an annual reunion. And in that way, that confidence it is maintained. And also, Morocco loves to see that as an adoptive mother myself, and then a part of my journey is that after I adopted my son, a year later, my sister went back and adopted an older child she met during my journey. And so the two of us came together and we co-founded Bloom because we wanted to do more for all the children that were left behind, that we had developed such a deep connection with through our adoption experiences. And, for Morocco to see that adoptive families here have maintained that commitment to Morocco and are continuing to serve Morocco and have really taken on this cause, I think it continues that good faith and those good feelings, and really serves to keep that good faith and good feelings that allow these adoptions to stay open.
Yeah, I was actually reading. I read about you and your sister in one of the of Henna Khan's stories she wrote on adoption. Can you I actually forgot what the name of the book was. Can you share about that too? Because I thought that was really amazing too, that
Sure.
they
Yeah.
that story is being shared mainstream in books as well.
Yeah. The book is called The Hero Next Door. It's a anthology in which Henna Khan wrote a short story actually about my sister's daughter's experience, that her voice through the adoption. And Henna is just a beautiful writer and captured that so in such a lovely way. She's a childhood friend of ours, family friend. So, really the experience that I had was that I went to Morocco, I adopted an infant child. And even when he was just 3 months old, seeing the deprivation, seeing how difficult orphanage life was, even at that age, and the profound developmental delays that he had experienced, I knew that I had to do more. So I immediately got to work and, just on a personal level, started programs in which we could improve the life of those children in some way. We started a sponsorship program for for the preschool age kids, and through that, my sister ended up sponsoring a child, and she had met that child while she was in Morocco supporting me for my adoption, and she couldn't forget about him. And 9 months after I brought my son home, she brought her son home, who was 4 years old at the time. And so my sister
Oh,
Noma and I really, we, through that experience, really came to, one, have a profoundly deep relationship with people in the orphanage, and a deep understanding of what the needs of the children were in the orphanage, and also a real desire to stay connected. When we left a piece of our heart there. It wasn't, I had imagined that I would adopt my son and I would run off into the sunset and live my happily ever after. And I was shocked with the level of depression I felt. And I was shocked with, in some ways, how small an adoption felt in the scheme of what was happening and the suffering of these children. And so, I had so many sleepless nights. I didn't know what else to do. I had tried to help as many people as I could, who wanted to adopt, to tell them about this way to do it. But then eventually, after Noma brought her son home, we decided we wanted to formalize our efforts, and we wanted to do something that was sustainable, that we could do, and the 2 years of trying to do things on a personal level gave us that experience to understand what we could and could not do. Working internationally, we wanted something that could never be taken from the kids, that would be there for generations, and that would really improve their life. So we decided to start Bloom Charity, which stands for Building Lives of Orphans from Morocco. And what we do is we go into the orphanages, and we evaluate the spaces, and we figure out how we can incorporate um, things that will improve their mental health. And so one of our main projects is called the Magical Play Garden Project. So we go into the orphanages and we find spaces where we can create an opportunity for the children to go outdoors, to play, to build relationships with each other, to really have those early childhood development experiences that then allow them to have relationships with each other, to understand how to have relationships, to build their resilience, to build their communication skills. And in turn, by the time they go to school at 8 years old, they have some developmental skills that allow them to survive in that school environment. Because what we were finding was the children were already much too far behind to be able to then adjust to the school environment. So we started Bloom Charity with this purpose to focus on the mental health and early childhood development. And now, alhamdulillah, we have already funded, in just less than 3 years, five play gardens in 5 different orphanages,
Mm,
which is a
mashallah.
playground and a magical garden. Yeah, alhamdulillah. And, this year we were supposed to build 2 more, one of which is our first fully handicap accessible play garden at an orphanage in
wow.
Casablanca, which, yeah, and one thing that was said by one of our friends and supporters, Jackie Spinner, who's also an adoptive mother to 2 Moroccan boys. She said something that was really profound to me, that in Morocco, orphan children have always been the ones that have been the last to receive anything. And she said, to see them be honored in this way and be the first to have this commercial level, handicap accessible playground is really profound, and what that does for their psyche. One thing we make sure with Bloom is we don't give them hand me downs. We really take that value in Islam of honoring the orphan very seriously. And we work with, you know, the best playground equipment manufacturer in the world, Play World. And actually through Hina Khan and a relationship she introduced us to at Kaboom, we were able to work with them in a partnership where they give us deep discounts. So our money goes a long way. And we are a completely volunteer run nonprofit with 4 board members. And the 4 of us, dedicate a lot of time and energy, but in a completely volunteer way. And then we have this incredible partnership where we get these deep discounts. So, we're really trying to stretch that donated dollar as far as we can for these orphans. And we really take this as a trust. Our faith also tells us that it's really a trust. What is the wealth of the orphans, and that we're entrusted with that when people donate for this. So we're really, alhamdulillah, happy to see the result when we've gone back and talked to people, the caregivers in the orphanages, what they tell us about how these playgrounds have benefited the children and the difference they've made in their lives. The first playground we opened, the orphanage I adopted my son from, was on the 5th floor of a hospital building. And there was no windows, no sunlight, no opportunity to go outdoors. And these children stay here from birth until 8 years old. So if we think quarantine is bad, imagine that being your entire childhood. And so we built a rooftop play garden. So they go up 1 story and they have the sun and they have trees and they can play and there's birds and they're getting exposure, that sensory input, that exposure. They're getting their childhood.
No, that's absolutely amazing. The fact that you guys have been able to do this from start to finish. What was the timeline from when you guys first started the fruition, like thinking about it in your head, to actually starting the nonprofit? Because I know it takes a lot of time and effort to do that. And the fact that you're probably doing that with a newborn, it sounds like your son was very young when he came. What was that timeline, and what was that process like for you guys as a family with a new baby, with your 2 children already at home? How did that impact your
Yeah.
family life, and what was that process, so that we understand as a community?
Yeah. Well, I will say that it's been, the trajectory has been incredible, and we laugh about it, because truly there is no way that God's hand isn't in this, because as just people, the way things have fallen into our laps, it really truly feels like Allah wants this for these children, and we just are
Mm-hmm.
the lucky ones that get to keep knocking on the door, and then he opens it and we have a thought and it falls into our lap. So subhanallah, um, the trajectory has been incredible. We In October, it will be 3 years since we received our 501c3. We applied
Wow.
for that. Yeah. In So we were able to, I will say we started thinking about the nonprofit even before I went to adopt my son. So throughout the 3 years that I was adopting my son, I have a background in public health. I've done program planning and development. Um, and I knew that I wanted to do something. So all those years, those relationships were being built, the seeds were being planted. And when I went, I did do a needs assessment. I met with the orphanage directors, I evaluated the space. It was shocking how quickly I understood that the children really just need relationships, and they need childhood experiences, just a basic childhood. The deprivation is so real that it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure that out, or a public health degree to figure that out. But formalizing the nonprofit is a lot of work, and we, alhamdulillah, have a great team. I think one of the best things we did was just develop a really great team, and then our donors have been incredible, and they've really trusted us, and we've tried to make sure that we constantly have that transparency and that communication. And I quit my job. I'm a full-time volunteer. I quit my other job, I should say, and just dedicated myself to this 100%, as did the other board members. They haven't quit their other jobs, but they've dedicated themselves to this 100%. We work night and day, but it doesn't feel like work because we have those children over there that keep us going. Their smiles, they're the caregivers, they're, we can't do anything but put all our energy in this. And, it's been less than 3 years that we've been a 501c3, but we are on our way to, at the start of our third year, to have 7 playgrounds in 7 different orphanages in Morocco. And currently, we are fundraising for an orphanage in Fez. And we have every intention. We've talked to our partners on the ground in Morocco. We have every intention to continue, and not let the quarantine or anything stop us. We've been working remotely on designs and enrichment programs. We've still been advocating for the needs of the kids. There was an orphanage that was left without a director in this pandemic. We were able to advocate for them and work with a partner organization and get them immediate supplies. So, honestly, it doesn't feel like work. It feels like half of my children are living in another country, and I have no choice but to do this. And I know the others on the team feel the same way.
So how do you, in this with COVID, has it affected the kids actually in the orphanage? Are they doing things differently? Are they still allowed to go on the playgrounds?
It has. It's dramatically affected them in a number of ways. Morocco was very quick to lock down, so that was one great thing that they did. But for a child in an orphanage, that means there's no more adoptions happening. That means the economic issues that are resulting from that are resulting in more abandonments. We already know that 24 children are abandoned a day. 24 newborn children are abandoned a day in Morocco. But now we are in a situation where clearly those numbers are going to go up. And couple that with the fact that international adoptions aren't happening right now, we're going to see these orphanages that just had started to not be overcrowded become overcrowded again. That's inevitable. We're expecting that. And in addition to that, there's less donations coming in. And the children are marginalized even further because they're not the children who are going to be able to have access to the devices to continue with the online learning as is being done in Morocco and throughout the world. So they are suffering, and we're doing everything we can, and it makes Bloom's mission and the Play Garden project to me even more relevant, because what we've done, for example, in an orphanage in Meknes for older children, we created a fitness room. We've created the rooftop play garden. We've created playgrounds. These children now have a safe place during quarantine to be outdoors and get their energy out and to socially distance because they're being taken out in groups. So all of that, we hear from the orphanage directors how valuable that's been, and the thought of an orphanage being hit. We've read all the articles about what COVID means in any institution, whether it's a refugee camp or the kids at the border or for people that are incarcerated. These children are the most vulnerable. They don't have proper nutrition, they don't have proper access to hygiene, and they're in incredibly overcrowded spaces. So I have had many sleepless nights thinking about what that will look like, and all we can do is just pray that they're protected and try to keep improving their quality of life and the conditions that they're living in as best as we can.
That's really sad and disheartening to hear. Obviously, it from a logical perspective that these types of things are going to happen, right? But when you hear it firsthand and feel it in your heart, it's so sad. And the one thing I did want to ask, because this is something that I personally am very curious about, like what happens to the kids that are older and eventually age out of the situation or age out of the program? What happens
Right.
to those kids, and what does their life look like?
So the outcomes are catastrophic. from what we know statistically through studies that have been done through the UNICEF reports, these children suffer an incredible amount. 80% of children that age out of the orphanage, and when I say they age out of the orphanage, we hear about children who are 18, and the orphanage does, some of them don't just kick the kids out, but at some point they have to leave. They're not children anymore. So they try their best, but these children have to leave. And sometimes they end up sleeping on the street right in front of the orphanage because they say this is the only family we've known and the only meal we might get if they have mercy on us. And so, for these children, sometimes moving on is very, very traumatic and difficult. And they don't really understand social skills sometimes. They haven't really developed those skills. And so, one of the things that Bloom has done is really focused on empowering the local community and making sure that there's an awareness about these orphanages in the local community. So these playgrounds really become kind of a key in, a door in, and they create a space to then bring advocates and support from the local community, because that's the community that's really going to benefit these children in the long run. So what we do is we do enrichment programs. So we don't just go into an orphanage, drop a playground down and walk away, or a fitness room down and walk away. We then continue on with enrichment programs, and we work with local partners that then we know can develop relationships with these children, so that when they age out, they have someone on the outside that can help them, guide them, mentor them, and be with them. But we know that 80% statistically have gone on to become offenders of some sort, um, gone on to become street children. 70% have depression. They are 10 times more likely to die by suicide. So, it's a very, very real issue. And our hope through Bloom is to really kind of focus our intervention on those early years and try to build
Yes.
that resilience and that mental health and coping mechanisms up in those youngest years of life. So as they grow, they can carry that with them. And inshallah, we can change these outcomes in the long run.
Inshallah. So, Amna, for people who are interested in donating their fitra to Bloom, how can they do that?
So right now we have our Facebook fundraiser up for Ramadan. We do an appeal each Ramadan for a playground that we're focusing on. This year we're focusing on Darul Wafa Orphanage in Fez. That is home to almost 200 young boys, ages 5 and up. And they currently have absolutely no place to play, and actually really no place to sit, to be honest with you. They have their beds, but they really don't even have um, you know a social area to sit, relax, and be with each other. When we went to the orphanage in October, we were actually shocked with this one, even though we've seen so many orphanages now. The children are really just standing around leaning against walls. They actually have absolutely nothing. So we are currently fundraising for them. You can go to our website, which is bloomcharity.org. You can go follow us on Facebook by finding us, Bloom for Charity. And we're always welcoming donations. You should know that this is a zakat eligible sadqa jariyah. And it's for orphans, and that this is a volunteer run nonprofit. So if you want to see our annual report, in which we have all of our um, accounting from the past years, you can go to our website and our annual reports are there. And we welcome all your donations this year because of this pandemic and what a stressful time it's been. We understand that many of our loyal supporters and donors may not be ready to make a donation just yet. So we've introduced a pledge option. So you can also make a pledge through our website, and we'll just follow up with you in December before the end of the year. And we've also opened a virtual prayer wall. So, for all of our supporters and our community of Bloom supporters, this is a tough time for all of us. And we wanted to make sure we have multiple options for our supporters to show their love to the children. So we also have a virtual prayer wall where you can just leave thoughts and prayers and feelings and well wishes for the kids that we can share with them. So they know that we're thinking about them.
Mashallah, that's so beautiful.
Definitely.
Thank you.
And
Thank
we're
you. And
obviously going to be sharing, I mean, I'm gonna like we're definitely going to be sharing those links. And it looks like I believe it was probably your sister posting on Facebook right now. We had that come in. She was so cute. She shared it's bloomcharity.org. There she is.
I love it.
Slash Ramadan 2020. She's so cute. I love that
She's
you guys
awesome.
are supporting
She's
each
our
other.
she's our tech.
Yeah, I was like, it's there.
Yeah, she's always got the tech part handled. So I love that she's on here doing that.
She is good to go. I definitely wanted to read this quote that I found, which I think is very beautiful and definitely something that we all should remember. It's I and the caretaker of the orphan will enter paradise together like this, right? Where there's no space between the forefinger and our middle finger, leaving no space in between. People that take care of orphans and trying to help these kids from the ground up, and the fact that Bloom Charity is doing that and doing amazing work. Please follow them on Facebook. I know we're going to tag them when we release this episode. And Amina, like I am so thrilled to have gotten introduced to your journey. Thank you so much for making the introduction. Thank you so much for being here today. Again, her website and the Facebook, but all of that's going to be in the links to our show notes. Do you have an appeal for our audience today, Amina, that you want to end
My
with?
appeal, this is mom being well Muslim. We're mothers. We understand on a deep level what it means to love our children. And what I would say is, in the Quran, we're commanded to love the orphan, to care for the orphan. And I will say that you will make that intention and you will want to do that. But what you will receive, the risk, the sustenance that these children bring with them, when I hear someone say to me that what I did will help me be in heaven, or inshallah be close to the Holy Prophet ﷺ in heaven, it kind of makes me shudder, because I feel like, wow, I get that too, because what I've already gotten feels like heaven on earth. What he's given me, the blessings he's brought, the depth of love he's brought, the understanding of humanity and love, it's unreal. So I would say my appeal is, open your hearts, don't be afraid. If you have it in your heart, take that leap. Don't worry about what other people think or say. If you have it in your heart, nothing will be more profound than to see the Muslim Ummah open their heart to this and see those orphanages empty out. Helping the orphanages have playgrounds and healing gardens and enrichment programs, that's great. And we're working on that, and we're doing it, and we appreciate it. But for this audience of Muslim mothers, my appeal is, open your hearts and open your homes and think about these kids as more than just the other. And that's all I can say about that.
You're going to make me cry, girl. I mean, here's a virtual hug from me to you, because I can tell this is definitely a passion project, and you are coming here with an open heart and an open spirit. And I definitely commend you for doing this. I'm going to look more into this program for myself. I always feel like, we've talked about it at length as a family, to have more of our own or possibly adopt at some point. So the fact that you're coming at a stage in my life where I'm open and receptive to this, like I said, God has a bit, you never know. We might be hearing it for the first time here in Momming While Muslim. But I am giving you a hug and giving you an Eid Mubarak blessing. Thank you, Solat, for coming and filling in for Miss Uzma. I definitely appreciate you, ladies. And until next time, I hope you guys have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your Ramadan.
Thank you
You
so
too.
much.
Walaikum assalam.
Walaikum assalam.